We are live. Good afternoon, David. How the devil are you,
Good
sir?
afternoon, Pete. Nice to see you.
Very cool. It's all cool here. It's delicious. I've got lots of booze on the table. You're gonna have to talk me through it and tell me all about. And tell me what the hell? Why we meet up?
What on earth have we been up to? Exactly.
What have you been up to?
Well, you got to do something, right? Well, I mean, so for those that don't know, I'm David T. Smith. I'm a one of the founders of the Craft Distilling Expo and also Crafty, which is kind of the virtual and online aspect of that. And we've been running it, I don't know, for 7 or 8 years, something like that. It's essentially a trade show for distillers. Pete, I think you've been there from, if not from the very beginning, very, very early on with a talk on a tasting on European rum, I seem to recall, of which we had one British rum is part of that tasting. But then since then, gradually, it's been getting bigger and bigger. And as primarily, people may know me as a gin person, and all the time I've been in gin, which is probably about 15 years or something now, something crazy like that now. People have always said, so what's going to be the next big thing? Is it going to be rum? Is it going to be rum? And rum has been ready to supplant gin for at least 15 years. And maybe only now I'm starting to get a little bit worried.
Yeah, I think in terms of gin, I think there's a lot more gin out there. We've got ever since, I mean, like my rum thing's like 12 years, something like that. And you know, people have been saying, which is over 12 years, people have been saying, yeah, rum's gonna be the next big thing, like all that time. But it is kind of like, it feels like this year actually kind of we're getting everywhere. Yeah, we're insidiously creeping out there, but in a kind of a way that's there's a lot of strings to our bow. I think that's part of what we're going to chat about here today, and it really just kind of highlight the diversity. But
I think you're spot on. And so what we started, I think actually about the same time as we started the Expo, was we started a competition. And you know, our customers in terms of our attendees are distillers, and our vendors are people that make stills and make bottles and things like that. So essentially, if there's people out there bringing out new products, if there are people opening new distilleries, that's good for us. And so the idea when we started was we did a gin of the year. That's how we started. And we had it. And this is why it was free for everyone to enter, because the idea was it would give someone kind of a boost when they were just starting off. And also at that sort of time, it's a time when a lot of distilleries don't necessarily have a lot of money to enter competitions, which can be expensive, not just in terms of the actual entry fee, but actually the cost of the product and shipping it. It's probably in some cases way more, certainly when you get international, way more than the cost of the entry of the thing. So that was the idea. When we started, we did 18 different distilleries in the UK making gin, because that's how many there were at the time. One person wouldn't enter, so I just bought the bottle anyway, because I wanted to have this snapshot of what was going on in gin at that time. And that leads us to where we are now, 7 or 8 years later. And I was starting to feel the same about rum. And I know that Pete and I discussed a bit quite a lot. And we did a rum class last year. It was the first time we'd done like a workshop on rum, and we've done different rum blending and talking about different words and all these kind of things. And so the idea was partly a competition, so a good way to tell people about the great stuff that's going on with rum produced in the UK. Now, some of that is about, blending and maturing in the UK, but the majority of what was entered was people that are doing, what do you call it, Pete? First principles. So fermentation and the distillation here in the UK, which, as I think we'll get onto, is not the easiest thing to do. And that was kind of the idea. So it was partly to raise the profile of that, and then partly it was to get a snapshot of what was going on. So I think in terms of the competition, we had about 30 different producers enter. So I did think that we get a decent handle on what's going on in the UK with rum at the moment.
Yeah, we got the just in case the internet fluttered a little bit, or it seemed to for me. So if you do drop out, don't panic. Come back in. We'll be here waiting for you. I do like this software. It does work rather well. So yeah, I mean, I kind of put a little bit of background as well. Is you've been judging major competitions for quite a long time. In fact, I think I have to say thank you, David, because you're the one who got me into this judging kind of malarkey anyway. Got me into YWSC with you. So, so there's a great deal of experience. But some of these competitions are quite vast in their scope in terms of the way they're breaking down into lots of different categories to pop into and stuff, which is okay if you've got like thousands of entries, because you end up with decent amounts in each of these things. But like for this one, we've kind of had to take a little bit of a simpler approach to it. Because otherwise we're going to end up with a category of one person, which kind of feels a bit. So it's Wednesday, and it's the day they test the alarms. I'm not leaving. It's not a fire alarm. Honestly, it's a bit of luck. It was only for like a few seconds, because sometimes it goes on a lot longer. Oh God, timing, eh? So yeah. So what have we got with this thing? We've broken this down into. We want it. What was it? So yeah, rewind. A little while ago, looking into the amount of producers here in the UK, and there are actually far more than I think most people kind of give credit as well. I think it's kind of like the idea. I mean, gin, obviously, that's kind of gin producers rocketed away like years ago, but like rum is creeping up. There are far more rum distilleries here in the UK than what. I actually was quite surprised. I was kind of like last time I did a thing, which was about a year ago. I kind of think I'll do a little kind of survey and think. I was thinking maybe it's 24. No, at least twice that, 3 times that.
Exactly.
Of course, with rum, it's not quite just as straightforward as making it here in the UK. Yeah, there's other people bringing it in and blending it, and entirely as their own product, or bringing in a blend. Of course, we have also got that thing we have to kind of face into a little bit, that there's also the spiced rum market that kind of does tend spice and flavour, and they kind of get lumped together with rum in general. And of course, spiced rum is ridiculously popular. I think that's the thing that's running away the fastest in terms of people doing stuff. Of course, that's easier in some respects. So you don't actually have to distill your own spirit. You can buy a base liquid in the first Botanical, and kind of go from there as well. So it's kind of, so what have we got? How many?
We had 6 main categories based on just tasting them on their own, and so that was an unaged, although it was also somewhat sort of focused around, because I mean there's all the terminology and stuff but largely it was looking at unaged, or something that would fill the position of an unaged rum. So some people like to call it Wight, but as I know you've probably talked much about before, there are issues with having a color-based definition. So we didn't want to have that, but mostly it was unaged. And then we had an age category, and so these were both people you had to do the fermentation and distillation yourself. That was all that. And then we had, because as I think we might get into a bit about, there's something about the climate in the UK, and there's not loads of fields of sugarcane growing in Norfolk or somewhere like that. So the materials, just the conditions of producing it, and compared to producing it in the Caribbean or Madeira or somewhere like that, South America, it's totally different. And so that needs to be reflected. And that was something that I was very keen to do. And actually, I think it's the increase in people that are producing it themselves. I think that is part of the reason why I'm starting to think, now actually there's a critical mass there. Now I think it's ready to move a bit forward, because that was what happened in gin. It was when people could visit the distillery and understand how gin was made. That was the thing. That was the point. People like Sipsmith and then others following, that was the thing that changed everything. So I think we're there now with UK rum. So we had blended was our category for things that had been either blended or matured or finished in the UK, but it'd been produced somewhere else. Primarily that was the Caribbean. And then we had 3 elements of the sort of more the flavour kind of category, as it were. We had spiced, we had flavoured, and then we had this new category which has emerged, and we had about 6 enter, which was botanical. And this is kind of where, rather than just doing an infusion or adding a flavour or something like that, the rum is redistilled, or at some point is distilled with botanicals in a similar way to what you would do with gin. And I know, Pete, I talked about this when we did the Think Rum 2 or 3 years ago, and I was talking about spiced rum, and I made a spiced rum that had put too much cardamom in, way too much cardamom in, but it was kind of this made in this way. And there's about 6 there, and I think a lot of these people are also making gin, so there's some matching between the two, some crossover for sure. So those were our 6, and then also as something that was a bit fun, and that was recommended by one of the people that wanted to enter actually, and we said, oh, yeah, we can do that for sure. It was a daiquiri competition. So the idea of this was that all the judges, when we were going through and tasting, they were asked to make a note of 2 or 3 that they thought they'd really want to try in a daiquiri. And then when we were done, we went ahead and did that. So there was also a daiquiri of the year winner as well. But I think we should start tasting something, Pete, because
we should.
Getting a little bit dry here. Do you want to start off with the unaged winner?
Which was, just to pick up the right bottle number.
It was 20.
20.
So just to clarification for everyone that's watching, because of course of the social distancing and all that kind of thing, and also just the fact that we can't really move about very much and be in the same room, everyone had their samples put in smaller bottles and then it was distributed to them. So anyway, so we're on to this.
And judge blind, obviously, as well, hence the coding.
Well, exactly. COVID security, of course. So you got in your glass. There we go.
Yeah, high ABV. I like the little.
Very high ABV. Yeah, it's 63%. This one.
It really is as good, actually, as when you come back to where you revisit, you're like, yep, I think this is really cool. You know what? Actually, this one, Opus, right? Opus. Winner? Did you announce the winner?
I've not said it yet. I'm just about to do it now. Oh yeah, we've announced the winner online. I was going to just do it now. So it's this is Unconventional Spirit Distillery here, and it's their Opus, which is overproof unconventional spirit, I believe. Yeah, it says on the front of the label. So there you go. There we go. There you can see 63%. And a big part of the judges in general, and particularly myself, was how well integrated that high alcohol is into the rest of the spirit. From tasting it, yeah, there's a little bit of power there, but you'd never guess it was 63. It's really, really skilled piece of distilling, I think.
Lovely. I'm saying, but there's something. A few years ago, I think when I was kind of some of the very first sort of rum things we were doing at Distilling Expo, there seemed to be much of a sameness about a lot of producers out there. People were struggling to get a stamp for themselves that kind of that sort of set themselves aside from other people, and so there's a note that I recognise, but there's a sweetness to it, there's a fruitiness to it, and then say that oiliness in the mouth and the way that it just go over the palate. I think to 63%, this drinks beautifully. I kind of you know what, and embarrassed as I am, I like to feel like I follow the UK rum scene fairly closely. This is a company I just didn't know, which is kind of like just the rate of people coming to market. I mean, it could be that I maybe have heard about it, and then the last year has been, best part of a year has been challenging in many respects. It's not been easy for me, that's for sure. And brands could have come to it, and I just didn't catch him, the way they did. But so it's lovely to actually get something so good I didn't know about as a surprise. Yeah, and we're surprised. Yeah, by a few people. We've got 2 drifters on there. Hi. Oh yeah,
I can see 2 drifters.
So
and Dan as well, Stuart. Hello.
Nice to see you. Great quality out there, on a number of producers. But it was an absolute pleasure to have this one. And well, I have got sufficient to make it into a daiquiri, because I think this one actually feels like I'm going to go back and enjoy again.
Yeah, and they're based up in Lincoln, just for everyone to know. So we do a range of other spirits as well. Other rums, I should say. Sorry, other rums.
You've linked all these this morning on via the Facebook page.
At Distilling Expo on the Twitter, and also Craft Distilling Expo on Facebook. It's all on there, and I will update Summer Fruit Cup, which is my website, and the details will also be on there. And it will also go up on the Craft Distilling Expo webpage. So we'll have all the details there. Thank you very much. So we're all there. Oh, look at this! My goodness. and also, the unaged category was the biggest by far. It was a very big category. Really competitive. There was some really good quality products there. And for me personally, and this is generally the case with most spirits, I find just the expression of the base material, the fermentation, and that's something that I find really, really exciting. And so this for me is always the exciting kind of area. We also had I've got the bottles in front of me, but we had 2 highly commended positions as well because we had that many entrants and the quality was so high. And that was Portsmouth Distillery there, 1968 was one of them. And then also the St. Piran's, which is English Spirit Distillery. Those were 2 others for different reasons, and they each had their own characteristic, but there were 2 others that did very well with the judges. And it was quite interesting that kind of like that top section, the judges seemed to kind of coalesce around particular ones, which was quite interesting. Whereas other ones, some people would love them and some people not so much, which is quite typical for judging, but was quite a sort of distinctive, definitive kind of view for sure.
Number 17 was the Portsmouth Distillery.
That's Portsmouth Distillery, yeah.
That's right. Well, I haven't gone to the extent of writing it on my sample bottles. I really should do. Especially, you know what? I definitely should do if I'm going to plan on keeping these for a little while longer.
Well, exactly, yeah. To do some more tasting.
Yes,
I think we were talking before, weren't we, Pete, that we're planning on doing a few more of these things to maybe look at some of these other rums and maybe some of the other highly commended and stuff. The stuff that's either is just like it's just really good quality stuff, or there's some stuff just interesting as well, and it's worth discussing these botanical rums and things like that. So I think we're just doing. I'll mention the other people, but it's like winners today, but there's more to be done subsequently, which would be quite exciting, I think.
To be fair, I think it raises an interesting comment that's worth sharing. A lot of other spirit competitions will have you'll win a gold or a silver or bronze, or there'll be some sort of grading to it, and everyone who enters gets a result, whereas in this case it's not. It's about picking one to keep it. So that's a key element to this competition. So it's not to say you didn't get it. It doesn't mean to say that
no, not at all. And like looking at the scores and stuff, like that level, like under those 3, then suddenly there's a huge chunk of stuff, and it's not that it's that people didn't like it. It's just like those were the ones that managed to edge over. But yeah, I think for what we're doing for this, I think for for Unconventional Spirits to say we are unaged rum of the year, or for Portsmouth and St. Piran's to say we're highly commended, that's it. There's nothing else. I think is a greater value in this when it's a small competition like this for doing that, and that's what we're kind of going for.
So we have
a very complicated judging system. It's not just arithmetic mean. My wife is a data analyst, so thank you to Sarah for doing all the analytics side. But there's at least 3 different aspects that kind of try and get rid of anyone that might be scoring particularly low or something like that, or particularly hard. Anything like we try and round out all of that as much as possible, which I think gives a fairer result and a fairer competition for sure.
Well, we can talk more about the panel and the sort of size of it later. But there's a thing that's probably worth mentioning at this point. So if anyone does look up the Portsmouth, they'll realize they're making rum using panela or rapadura or evaporated cane juice. So it's probably worth mentioning at this point that we have got a slightly more tolerant scope in terms of what you can make. What you can make rum from. So rum should be, according to EU regs, which are mirrored here in the UK, molasses, sugarcane juice, fresh pressed sugarcane juice, or a syrup made from that juice. And in the case of evaporated cane juice, well, you're pushing. I think the reason I'm sort of happy to include it is one that it kind of retains that taste of what it's made from, what it's sought so much more. And it's a case of what you've done is you've taken that juice and you're making a syrup, and you've just boiled down the water to the point where it's become solid, but you haven't processed it through a refining process to make sugar. So you haven't taken it to the molasses stage. So it still retains that kind of character. So at the moment, I think it's fair to say that it's not necessarily strictly within the EU guidance. I know we're not going to be part of the EU for very much longer, but no. I think the UK.
The same we had in gin. We had silly exceptions for stuff that just never made, to me anyway. They never made any sense at all. I mean, what is it in the spirit of it? I know. Sorry, the pun with the spirits competition, and I think it definitely is. So,
Yeah, I think so. Christopher Carson, yeah. So not everyone. So it's just there isn't, because there's no cost to enter. I suppose there's no desire to reward people back with some sort of medal, is there? It's kind of and to be honest, and like say some of the stuff that was tasted was not necessarily from liquid that was provided by the supplier. It was kind of by the company. It was things that we were kind of I've got it. We can compare it and put it in within.
That said, everything that won that was entered by people, but as I said, because part of this was part of a tasting of what was going on in the industry. But also, hello to Chris. Not spoken to you for ages, but nice to hear from you, buddy. From America. It is Chris from America, I think. So, hello.
In a while, yeah.
All right, shall we taste another rum?
Yeah, I think so. So this will be the aged. Shall we go with now?
This is aged. This is new. This is again another strong one. I don't know what this says about our judges, but the one at 51%. This is the new Cotswolds treacle rum.
Ooh.
Oh, Pete's got a bottle already.
I did. Well, a very nice PR company said, "Well, can I send you one?" And I was like, "Well, I hardly say no, can you?" When someone says that, so one turned up not long after judging.
Why not?
Ideal timing, but yeah, I already shared it far and wide. I plan on doing more of that as well. This is an interesting one again because the front of the label sort of has treacle rum, and it's like, so is this being made from molasses? But it is made from molasses. It's from molasses generated here in the UK through refining here in the UK, but from unrefined sources from the tropics, from sugarcane. So legit completely. But interestingly matured in what was it? Cream sherry cask.
It is cream sherry, yeah.
Well, which is, I think, to the best of my knowledge, the first for me. I don't think I've ever come across that before.
Not that's in cream sherry. No, not at all. You a fan of cream sherry? I can imagine you there on an afternoon, or maybe Christmas Day, watching the Queen.
Little tipple, yes, possibly. I may have got through a few bottles in the past, mostly because I float on my fog cutter. But there you go. Yeah. This is, I kind of I have to say that it doesn't come with an age statement, and obviously here in the UK we don't expect anything to be like, if it's made in the UK, to then be aged with like for donkey's years. But I couldn't find an age statement on the bottles, put it that way. I think sometimes people, if it is a youngish rum or a youngish spirit, they tend to hold the number back because a young number would put people off. Whereas if you don't offer one up, then you're then making a decision based on that maturity. And actually, again, the integration of the rum and wood is actually very good. Kind of very young rums, I can find that you end up with the taste of rum and the taste of the spirit of the wood, and they haven't quite integrated. This is very good in that regard.
I think that's why. Also, I mean, that's why I'm always so keen to talk about whatever we might be talking about, maturation rather than age.
Maturity, definitely.
Because it's so many factors, right? I mean, aging it, I don't know where Cotswolds aged it, whether they did it at their distillery or whether it was like up in Liverpool or somewhere like that. But there's a totally different climate to doing it in, again, in the Caribbean or something like this. Is again one of these differences of making rum in the UK. It reminds me a little bit. And also, I think we never actually said, this was only open to rum from the UK. This was kind of the point of it. And it does remind me a little bit of taking that mindset. I know, Pete, when you've been judging rum at the American Distilling Institute, and mostly that's been UK rum, US rum, not UK rum, that makes a difference as well, because that's going to be a different process. Okay, look, maybe down in Louisiana, they've got some sugarcane and stuff, but like further north, great history of making rum in the US, but again, it's not necessarily the same materials that are on your doorstep, the same climate conditions, etc., etc.
I think Cotswolds obviously been established for quite a long time, and I think that it's safe to say they're famous for their whiskey.
Their gin, obviously, Pete. Come on.
I think they're no fools when it comes to maturation. They got their thing going, and it is one of these ones where I find that supposedly a very long fermentation So I'm actually kind of interested to try what that fermentation, what the distilled rum was as fresh before it went into the barrel. Because I get the impression it was quite a robust rum. And of course, then that's why that sherry cask has actually worked very well. And now you've got a nice harmony, because I think the sherry cask could have been quite effective in sort of stamping back on it. But what we ended up with is a nice balance. If I heard the rumor correctly, the reason in fact, I was even surprised to see this come out, because I think like a year or so ago, I'd heard the rumor that making the rum is such an impact on their production processes that it's kind of like it kind of gets in the way of the day-to-day business. So I mean, you're talking about tying up fermentation tanks for 30 days.
Yeah.
There's something you don't.
It was serendipitous. I was doing an interview with Dan for Gin Live. And we were just having a chit chat, and I was pulling his leg about the whiskey and the gin and stuff. And I said, "Well, yeah, you make like absinthe, you make vermouth," and he's like, "Yeah, and we're coming out with a rum in December." And I was like, "Damn! Before you go, rum of the year."
Yeah. Well, we could say we've heard them, but the vibe was that they were going to keep it for themselves. But it's very nice they put out this limited edition run.
I'm sure they got all sorts of stuff that they're just keeping for themselves there. I'm sure it's very, very tasty. It's like where they put the Ark of the Covenant in Indiana Jones.
For me, this was. I'm still struggling with a cold, but I'm kind of getting almost. I mean, I know you mentioned Christmas, but I'm almost getting a kind of like a after eights kind of the chocolatey, minty kind of menthol kind of thing going on. It's like it really is actually lovely rum. It's difficult to know quite why I would be like, well, I want to mix it. I mean, again, it's 51%. This is not a low ABV rum, but this is coming over really rather nicely.
Yeah, it's got the robustness that you'd expect from a high ABV, but there's no burn or anything like that, which I think is great.
Very good. What was the highly commended for the?
Highly commendeds were. Now you've asked me. Now.
Well, yeah, that's
I should know, shouldn't I? It was Rosemary and Gold. And it was English Spirit Distillery again with their Old Salt rum, which was the rum that we had in that first tasting. And actually, I was speaking to James yesterday, and I was just saying, like, it was where it was, and it was good. And like you've just refined it and refined it and refined it, and now I'm like, really fair play. And that does happen. I mean, that is the thing. Yeah, a lot of distillers, they play around. You can't get it right the first time, and with experience and learning curve, they've tweaked it. And he was like, "Yeah, that's it. That's what we've been doing." And I was like, "Fantastic!" So if you've tried it before and you were like, "Yeah, it was okay," I suggest trying it again, because I was really impressed. And before I was like, "Oh, it's good," but now I'm like, "Okay, yeah, fair play."
Yeah, no, it was a little disjointed. I think the first time I tried it was interesting. I'm happy that we included it in the in that first European rum flight, as it were. I'm good. Yeah, keen to come back to it now and spend a little more time with.
Marvelous.
Cool.
So we're keeping with the strong ABVs.
Why not?
And this is in the blended section. This is a smaller section, so there was just a winner, but the winner was the Isle of Wight Distillery HMS Victory rum. There we go.
Number 44.
This is 57%. So
sample number 44.
It's a little bit easier from there. Sorry?
Sample 44.
Sample 44, yeah.
Really should have written on the bottles, but we'll get to it. So yeah, so this is a company bringing rums in.
Yep.
And this is
it's a Demerara rum from Guyana, Trinidad, and Jamaica.
So this is the thing. So there are, I'd say that in Scotland particularly, I think they faced into this. The producers in Scotland have faced into the issue they've got in that there's lots of people would like to be called a Scottish rum, but the Producers Association have kind of got them together and said, right, okay, well, if you want to sort of claim that mantle, then there are a few things that we need you to have done in order to sort of use that terminology. Cool brands, cool areas, kind of, you want to sort of tag into that cool vibe, but, have you earned the right to do it? So we're not distinguishing. We could have easily, this competition could have easily been for brands or producers, that making exclusively from first principles in the UK. But there are rum brands out there British rum brands, UK rum brands that are doing a great job. They're based here, so we didn't want to kind of exclude them completely, but we need to make sure that if they aren't fermenting, distilling from first principles, then that they are that we know them for that, because sort of to compare this with the Cotswolds, they're not the same product
for sure.
But there's no
there needs to be some value added, I think, is the thing, right?
Value added is a really good
because we all know, like blending and maturation and all that, there's a real skill to that, and we wanted to have that reflected, and so that's where we were going from. Nice to see. Chris is saying that he keeps samples for future blackmail or retirement, which is interesting. I know, Chris. I think Drew Faulkner, a mutual friend of ours, I believe he not for blackmail, I don't think, but for retirement. I know he's always interested in a batch one or something. So
that's fun. Very good. That is actually a really nice blend. Again, it's one of those ones where it's immediately anyone who's a fan of rum will kind of sense that kind of Guyana. That's predominantly the driver on there for me. The ABV is good. It's got that kind of lip, so you kind of feel like, oh, I could mix this. This feels like something I can get stuck into a bottle of this without too much difficulty.
Yes, that is true. And a cautionary tale to all, please. I do know. I know a few people that have enjoyed this of an evening and fallen asleep in their deck chair and woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Not me, but I know someone.
So the judging panel did a great job then.
Yes, they did. Yes, yeah.
Very good. No, honestly, lovely. So there are a number of brands here in the UK. Some have been around a little longer than others, but it's one of these things. So it's kind of like rum's on the up. You want to be a piece of that action. What do? Do you wait until you've got saleable aged stock, or do you try and get in a bit quicker? Because if you work via merchants, rum merchants like Shear, like most do, it gets you to market much quicker. So kind of, you can't blame people for wanting to get in and supplement a range of products they make themselves. Either Wight Distillery make their own booze as well, don't they?
They do, yeah. That like the whiskey and the gin and stuff. They're making that. So and the whiskey when it finally comes out, very tasty. So whiskey of the year next, I think, Pete. But then again, historically, I know, like for example, Mercer and Company, like that, which has connections with the Haymans family, and of course they're then related to the boroughs of Beefeater and that. This is a revived name in the rum industry and what they're working on. I mean, we've both been there, with Pete, and it's a great location that they've got in London for doing like the rum blending and things. And as with many other people, kind of put the kibosh on it with COVID. But I'm expecting to see a lot from them next year and with some new things. They do. It's a double barrel. It's there. Oh, it's here actually. They were highly commended in the daiquiri, actually. But yeah, the Mercer, here we go. That's a double barrel. So exciting stuff.
I think it's part of the attraction with rum in the UK. I think, honestly, I mean, it is. I can't pinpoint exactly why rum kind of went out of favour, but rum was very much, the spirit of Britain. For a long time, centuries, a long history, and the idea of merchant blenders that were bringing rums in from parts of the Caribbean and making and creating brands out of London Dock and places. It's a famous thing. I guess rum kind of went out. My pet theory is rum went out of favour for two reasons. One was the stopping of the rum ration in the Navy, but also the rise of vodka and the massive marketing campaign that came.
I think that was it. I think probably also. I guess like. There are rum cocktails, and there's that, they're sort of like late 40s, 50s, 60s. There's a lot of sort of focus around that, but that kind of like, and there are some. So I know people come up with loads of examples, but it's not like what gin was in terms of like the classic kind of cocktails. Like there were so many. So I think that maybe that was kind of it, changing time. Also, I imagine, things like the zombies and all this kind of thing, rum just gets chucked in there, and then that's kind of it. But
coming down of the proper tiki drinks in the 70s, the late 60s, early 70s, that's it, death of tiki. So, and the rise of disco drinks, which didn't need quality spirits per se. Cool.
Didn't need quality spirits, didn't need quality juices.
Sweet on top of sweet.
Just sweeties. Yeah. Okay. So we talk about botanical rum.
Yes, I think so.
I think that'd be a good one to go to. So now this is a range, and it's very new. To an extent, we're still kind of finding our feet with exactly what these things mean. But it was the same one we've been doing Gin of the Year, and actually, it's happened in Gin of the Year as well. We'll get a load of entries in, and then we're like, oh, hold on a second. There's enough entries now that this probably could be a category in its own right, because there's some slight variation. So one example was something called Signature Botanical. Never really found the perfect name for it, but basically it was a London dry gin, but it would say such and such London dry gin. I think the first one we had was Liverpool. So it was like Liverpool Orange London dry gin, Liverpool Rose London dry gin. Yeah. London dry gins, but they are more weighted towards orange and rose. And the kind of the view is, if you're tasting it and you're like, well, this is a bit orangey, we're like, well, it does say it on the bottle. And it's kind of that idea. So there's a mix of botanical rums. Some are 100% distilled, and there's no infusion at all. So Forum, which is Portsmouth Distillery's one, their garden rum, it kind of sits a little bit between gin and a little bit between rum. I think that would be a good example of that. We've got some other ones. Unconventional do a Pioneer Pink, and that's a pink-coloured one. And then others do some post-distillation maceration as well. Scratch do a botanical rum, and also
Foxhall with Mad City.
Mad City, yeah, exactly. And Market Row is the other
Market
one.
Row.
Yeah. But we're gonna do an in-depth one just on the botanical stuff, aren't we, Pete? I think that would be.
So, yeah, because I think actually this is something I've kind of pushed for a little bit with coming off of last year's judging with the big competitions. You find that if people are going after or trying to be a me too as far as Captain Morgan Spiced is, that's fine. You sense it, but some people are creating some really interesting sort of flavor combinations, and it seems to be a shame to kind of put that sort of artistry up against sweet vanilla led, even though that's the crowd pleaser. And you know what you're trying to make, and you know where you're trying to sell it to. But it does seem a little unfair to put them alongside each other, because they do feel a little different. And it helps me to reinforce the thing that you have rum unflavored and you have something that's been flavored. And these need to be two very separate camps. And if you're going to have a separate camp, then you need to kind of really explore them and to understand them, and to
more detail.
Because
I mean, ultimately, if the end product tastes good, that's great. But like, you can buy some rum. I mean, there's also the question of, if you're doing flavored rum or spiced rum, are you making the rum yourself? Because I mean, you could split it by that as well. Yeah. But if you've got your rum, however you've got hold of it, and you're just adding some, I don't know, let's say some vanilla extract to it, and and then that's it. That's one way of making it. And if it tastes good, then fantastic. And if people like it, they'll buy it. But doing it via doing a distillation of vanilla pods and maybe chamomile and maybe cassia and something like that, that's different. And then that's different to using those things in their physical state and doing it as a maceration. These are all they're totally different skill sets. And I know often people say, oh, more with gin, it's just got flavored chuck in it. It's not the easiest thing in the world to just do stuff with flavor and not have it taste well, I won't say it this afternoon, but not good.
To get balance, to get that the way that it delivers and the way you want. I think this. I think you've got to. You have to give these guys the credit that's due for bringing together some interesting combinations. And honestly, I can see this just. I from the amount of new brands I see, my personal gauge for the way that the One Railed is that who's following me on Instagram. It's kind of like, what new followers we got, and new brands tend to. You get that's how I see the new brands mostly. Through social media or whatever. And there's some some interesting ideas out there, and the realization. And of course, the winner, I would say in this one, has pushed the boundary of
I would say so, yeah, and it was a little bit like head scratching. We were like, exactly. Okay, that's where we're going to put it. Also, hello to Emma Stokes. She's popped up. I think she's got. Is it a monocle emoji? I don't know. It's probably something I'm saying about. I think it's probably because she's saying she loves flavored gin. I guess is what Gin might be saying.
Yes, I think so. She's
there you go. So we've got. So this is for the botanical rum category, and this is the Sir Ranulph Fiennes Great British Rum. There you go.
What a shock.
Another one from English Spirit Distillery. They did very, very well. This uses a combination. It's unfortunately I haven't got the name of the woods in front of me, but there's 3 different woods that it uses. One of them is date palm. I know that for sure. And they kind of represent. Oh, here we go. It's on the front. Silly old me. So it's Canadian sequoia, Norwegian pine, and Umani date palm. And then they're all from different expeditions that Sir Ranulph Fiennes has done. So the Canadian sequoia was from the British Columbia Rivers expedition. Norwegian pine was one of his the Justelbreen Glacier expedition, and then the date palm was from the lost city of Ubar. So they do a combination. They distill these woods. So they use the woods as a botanical, basically, and they distill it with the rum before distillation. And then there's also some post-distillation stuff as well. So, but using wood as a rum, I find is quite an interesting approach there. And nice to see. Hello to Sarah. She's laughing, I guess, at my comment about Gin Monkey and her love of flavoured gin.
I think this is
40%.
So I have to say the competition gave me the first opportunity to try this. It's been out for a little while. When it launched, I'm not going to lie, it picked up some interesting comments on the rum forums about the way that they kind of marketed themselves and they went forward. And it's kind of like, well, what are you trying to be? You know, I don't believe they ever claimed that they're trying to be an aged rum. However, the traits of time in cask come through. And you know what? God damn it! They've actually done a good job of it. You know, I feel like I have to defend the fact that it's actually quite a well-realized product. But you have to kind of treat it the way we have. It's like, well, you know, it's our, you know, we've placed it where it needs to be. This is not an aged product. It's a botanical rum. The botanicals are 3 types of wood. You know, but it's still a flavoring process. So you know, we can place it, and when you put it in that context, well, it's like, well, it makes sense.
Yeah,
you know,
it's got some lovely. You know, it's there's a great dryness to it for sure. I think you get some of those sort of honeyed cedar notes that I guess is coming from the pine. There's some like fruity jamminess as well. There's some chocolate. It's a complex product for sure, and I think that's why it did so well. People liked it. I will say for the botanical, for the spiced and for the flavoured, we kind of did the judging in 2 parts on one day. This was done later in the day, and we had some additional judges that were more. They would be like the typical kind of consumer for these for rum in general, but there would be sort of people that. They are not afraid to spend 30, 35, 40, 45 pounds on a bottle. So they are, you know, they're buying the premium end of the market, because my thinking was that this would be a lot of where these products would be aimed. And actually, I do think having a view of as lovely as it is, if we like it, Pete, no one's going to make a rum business of whether we on what rum we buy, I'm afraid.
I think you're underestimating your recommendation, to be fair.
Apologies. Yeah. So that was the thinking, and we also had so then for that same reason, everyone did taste it neat, and we took notes on everything neat. But also, and this is always the problem we have with things like gin and other things like that, is this idea of like these are products that are generally not designed necessarily. This might be an exception, but not designed to be drunk on their own. And so we had it open, and all the judges we had, they've judged lots of stuff before. They knew what they were talking about. So. That was Dan, just to answer your quick question, premium was not the entry level, but that was for these people. They're not, I mean, if they can get themselves a 20 quid bottle of rum, you betcha they'll be there. But no, that's just as kind of as an aside. So we wanted to kind of reflect that, and so people also had the option, if they wanted to mix it with whatever mixer was like kind of their preference as well. Because that's part of the story. I
think it's worth saying, you know, I competitions where I've judged by IWSC and stuff. You know, we get flights and flights of flavoured rums, and I judge them in a kind of a dispassionately, and kind of like, you know, my way of approaching spiced rum is like, you know, if the flavour combination, you know, if it's announced as pineapple rum, you know, if it tastes like pineapples in a really nice way, we think, well, then they've done what they set out to achieve. You know, it's like how recognizable, and then it's like balance of sugar and other things that might be added to it. But I don't drink by choice, lots of spice rum or flavoured rum. In fact, I don't drink spice rum. That's it. So it's worth actually having something where people have an enthusiastic approach to it to kind of lend a little bit of credibility. Because I do drink of straight unaged white rum. I do drink that in volume, and so I kind of know what I like. There is a kind of the technical aspect of like how does that balance of nose to palate, consistency, delivery, and all the things that we sort of judge technically on, but you still kind of like, is this something that you want to come back to? It could be the most technical thing in the world, but like you can't really go giving away like top medals to something that actually you don't feel is going to be a very saleable thing. It feels like there's got to be an appeal element to it as well. So kind of sort of round that one out.
No, I think that's a really good point, and I think it's a bit like we were judging some vodka the other day, and I was in a discussion. A friend of both of ours, Veronica Karlova, and we were saying, how can you judge vodka if you don't drink it?
Well, exactly.
Like if you never think, oh, you know what? I fancy a nice vodka from the freezer, or just vodka on the rocks or something. Like if you're not enjoying drinking these spirits, whatever it is, rum or whatever, to enjoy it, I think it's difficult to be a proper judge of it. You can judge it technically, but I think you need a bit more than that,
Yeah, fair play. So I think increasingly flavoured and spiced flavoured rums, botanical rums, will be something that category is going to expand over the next few years, and it kind of might be that we kind of want to disentangle that from the rum thing and actually make it its own kind of competition in its own right, so it has its own airtime and
yeah, that's true. And it's a possibility that there might be. I mean, there's definitely like some people that could easily do both, but it's a possibility that there might be some people that are more suited to judging one bit of it, and some people are more suited to judging the rest of it. I mean, this is a little bit more, and actually, this was an important part of when we were choosing the judges and that. If we had judges that were just going to poo-poo it because it was flavoured and it was spiced, they're not welcome. I mean, that was the long and short of it.
Doesn't help, does it?
I'm not going to make no bones about it. The thing is, this makes it's part of the economy of rum. Some distilleries, they make both, and I'm sure that the spiced rums and things like that are a big part of what keeps the lights on. Same with flavoured gin. You can't turn your nose up at it just because you want to be elitist. So anyway, on to a non-elitist but very tasty spiced rum, which was Cinnabar from Portsmouth Distillery.
Yes.
Now, this is interesting because I guess technically this probably could have sat in either category because it is distilled spices and also infused as well. So it kind of has a combination of the two.
Yeah. And I think this is that single flavour profile led spirit, pineapple, coffee, cinnamon. Yeah. These are definitely, I mean, the last year I've seen so many more of these coming to market. Banana as well, the single, single, and I'm kind of interested to understand how they're being used, if I'm honest. But the first and most obvious thing is that when you've got something like this, it can easily be a modifier in a cocktail. I mean, I'm sure most of this is being consumed with a mixer, but when it's realised as well as it is, then it becomes a very viable thing. You could use this quite happily. I think I can see this being a useful product in a cocktail bar.
I mean, I can see like how you could mix this with maybe bourbon or something like that, and that can be like part of your towards an old fashioned or something like that. I can certainly see that. So this is also, again, with the rums, we did it with the mixer. I really like this on its own. I like the dryness of it, but to me, I've got my little carafe of Coke here. That was kind of, to me, and for the other judges, that's when it really came alive for them, and that was when they were like, "Oh, yes,
yeah,
brilliant."
So it's that way of adding spirit to a mixer, adding an accent to it, giving it a little dimension, and
because the dryness that it has means that when you put the Coke with it, it's not too sweet. That's the nice thing about it, and then you get a real, I mean, it's cassia, bang on the nose, really bright and vibrant. For Chris, it's got that touch of the Big Red about it a little bit, our American friend. But yeah, very, very drinkable and very much appreciated by judges. I don't think there was any left in their little bottles by the end.
It's not. It doesn't feel artificial. it feels
it's not.
like a crafted product. So it's actually, I think they've done a. Would I, how do I drink it? Would I drink it? It's not the kind of beverage I would drink very well, but I can go like, wow, that's a really well balanced, well made product.
Yeah, and I think you make yourself like, I don't know, I'm just thinking off the top of my head now, but let's say you make yourself like a little mojito or something like that, but you want it to give it that little Christmas, little dash of that in there. Not going to upset the sweetness balance or anything like that, but it's going to add a little festiveness to it. So, okay. And then we have the flavoured products. So a little range of different flavours here. And the winner was from it was Loaded Spirits, and it's Greedy Fox. It's a dark rum infused with honeycomb and caramel, which I thought was not really flavors I'm familiar with, of course, but I was like, when I read it, I thought, they're quite similar, aren't they? And then when you taste it, you're like, oh, okay, they are different.
So it's that. So when you boldly put a flavor that you're setting out to be on the label, then you've got to hope that spirit delivers in the way you then expect. And so actually that's quite important, because you can easily fuck that up, even if it contains the ingredient that you started out with.
Oh, yeah. And that's what, as much as possible, we're trying not to give the game away. That's what the judges were told, because I think, hey, if you say it's honeycomb and caramel on the bottle, then it better taste like honeycomb and caramel, which you can tell as soon as you open the bottle.
Yeah. It has a very room-filling quality, doesn't it? The aroma. Again, you know what? It's one of those ones. It's because of. This is. When you say it's a liqueur, it probably isn't liqueur in terms of 100 grams per liter kind of thing. It's not that sweet, but it's that kind of spirit that you could just drink neat over on the rocks or with a mixer quite happily.
Yeah,
I think
it's got a very dry finish. Again, this is one of these ones that for me, it was just that little splash of something, making it more like a drink that made it a bit more mixable. Dan, I think the list will be up, but it's not up yet, at least for everything that is winner / highly commended. It is all up on the Twitter, which is at Distilling Expo. If you have a look at that, it's not a list, but there's a load of pictures and you can be able to work out what it is. But there will be, I don't know, probably in the next hour or so on Summer Fruit Cup, and then hopefully on the Distilling Expo website, it will be up there as well. Okay.
So David is the organizer of this, and he is a team of
the one man. Well, other than Sarah doing the computers.
Yeah, a team of one.
Head of COVID security. Again, with that mixer, I think everything just seems to fit into place that little bit more. It's a bit like, it's a little bit like eating a crunchy. That's what I get. Imagine if you had a crunchy with like a caramel center. There you go, Cadbury's. That's one for you.
This is absolutely, it crunchy, but the honeycomb is so recognizable. So
exactly. And you start thinking like, this one, and there's a couple of others. I'm like, put a splash of that in the eggnog this year. See how that works. Yeah, right.
Beautiful.
Almost feel like you're going to get the little crunch of the honeycomb when you're drinking it.
So I kind of, I guess for a chap who's quite happy sort of drinking highest Jamaican rum and kind of all the kind of sort of technical kind of rums. They've done a great job. They really have. Yeah. And they're not playing alone. There are lots of sort of this kind of flavored single flavor or combination flavor rums coming to market. When I look at sort of the UK as a whole, I see Manchester particularly as a hotspot for flavoured rums. And it's almost to the point where I kind of, there might be, just in case any brands are tuning in going like, well, you didn't contact me to tell me that we're in this competition. But knowing you're out there and kind of getting in contact, it's kind of like, it's almost difficult to keep up with brands coming to market. When you're small and when you're starting out, you haven't got the ability to take an advert out in Imbibe magazine, We've got to find a way of getting hold of you somehow. So
we've not had the trade shows this year, which is usually where you find out so much about these new stuff that's going on. So yeah, of course. I think it's probably fair to say that we will be doing a run of the year next year. So if you didn't get a chance to win it, then give us a shout. We'll put you on the list, and then we'll make sure that you find out next year. You can also go to the Distilling Expo website, sign up to the newsletter, and then we'll make sure that you find out about it. And also, the fact that we're going to have our virtual expo in April, towards the end of April, and we'll have, I'm sure, plenty of rum chat there, because this is just, I mean, this is open Pandora's box, isn't it?
I think so. I think, you know what, I'm really glad we did it. We did plan, to be honest, to do this a little earlier in the year, and you know, I may have been the weakest link in many respects, you know, but it's kind of like we've got to get this thing out there. We've got to get out, and 2021 feels like it's going to be like bigger still. So you say 30 odd entries this year, if we're not, and that's not everyone necessarily. This is some brands kind of choosing to enter like one out of a selection they could have entered.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, as I said, I think it was about it's about 50, no, over 50 entries and just over 30. So like on I think the most that someone entered was about 4, but the average was like 1.5 or something. So for sure,
I think that's quite cool. I think we've got and you know, the first year of competition runs, of course, you know, people are going like, oh, okay, so I've never heard of you. Well, yeah, it's that kind of like 6 and 1/2.
And I planned the lockdown would finish and we'd be in tier 1 to do it.
Yeah,
like, no, you're in tier 2. Oh, thank you.
We've been fighting. Really, I'm so happy when 2020 is done. I really, really am. You know, it's going to be.
Yeah, well, that reminds me. Why is it best to think of 2020 like a panto? Because eventually it'll be behind you.
Okay, thank you. That's really good. I'm going to use that one myself. I've consider that stolen. That feels like a meme. That needs to be a meme, doesn't it? Anyway, right? Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm generally hoping that I think we can double the number of entries next year, because it's proving difficult to keep up with the number of companies coming to market that are genuinely here. So as long as we can keep a track on, and as long as there is full disclosure of where they sit, so they're not trying to claim something they're not. Let's own what you're
anyone
doing.
that filled in the form is rigorous.
Yeah,
to make sure, like, it's a thing. I mean, not all in the categories, but like things added, all this kind of stuff. We have all that detail because that's really important to know about things if any queries come up. So,
yeah, cool. So I think that's very good. I think there's a number of ones here, a number of rooms I'll be very happy just to finish a sample bottle off. You know, it'd be a shame to waste good quality spirit. So in lots of cases, I suppose I'm going to throw this one out there. If you are looking for gifting options for family members or rum fanatics or rum curious, then checking out some of the winners and even some of the other entries and things like that, and saying like, actually buy a bottle directly from the producer will do a great deal to support the industry right now, and certainly the producers will be very happy with that as well. And honestly, everything that's won, I can happily say it's a very well realised product. So gets my stamp of approval.
Yeah, there we go. And there's definitely a lot of the distilleries are actually probably better than gin in some cases. The amount of like mini sets and stuff that you can get when I was looking at websites and stuff. There's some really nice ones out there. Like Matuga, I noticed that they do it. I'm sure Portsmouth Distillery do them, and a number of other ones as well, because they've got a range. And so, yeah, check it out. Definitely worth looking at. And next time, what we're going to talk about next time, Pete? Botanical rums.
Yeah, we'll do it again, man. No, it'd be nice.
Thank you very much.
It'd be nice to kind of get get the name out there. The rum scene in the UK really is vibrant right now, and there's so much individuality. So cool. I've enjoyed that. Thanks, mate. Thanks for everything.
Thank you very much. Thanks for all your help. Thanks to everyone for watching. Thank you for the jokes. Oh, Queenie, Karen Smith. It's my mum. She's watching. Hello, mum. She likes the thing. Oh, yeah, I'll save you a bit of the rum as well. Like, she likes the sound of the crunchy caramel one, so I'll save you some.
Perfect. Right, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. This will be uploaded to Instagram Live or Instagram IGTV, and probably end up on YouTube and all kinds of other places for future reference. So
excellent. Thanks, everyone. See ya. Bye.
Bye.